So one of the most powerful things you can do in your content creation journey is repurpose, right? It's basically taking something that has worked before and either reworking it or just reposting it so that it works again. We're gonna go over this in depth, the entire framework for it, but I just want to break it down for you a little bit and give you a bit of a summary, right? Because what happens is when people come to your page, right? They're going to scroll and see some things and decide whether or not they're going to stay. Maybe they decided to follow you from the first post that they saw. Maybe your post got shared from someone else. And so you gained that trust, right? From being adjacent to the person who shared it. They already trusted that person. They shared your stuff. And now that other person trusts you, right? So with repurposing, it's super effective because it's a way for you to never kind of run out of content because you can always just go back to see what worked and again just restructure it so that it can either work better or work again or you can test and reiterate whatever the case may be. So the idea with this is to use your old content in a new way or for your new audience. Now, the lazy way, simply just repost it, right? But the intuitive way is to recreate it with new knowledge, right? So all right, so now let's dive into the repurposing framework, right? This is going to give you the entire framework of what I do and what I go through when I'm trying to figure out how to repurpose a piece of content. So there's 7 elements to consider, right? You got substitute, you got combine, you got adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, or rearrange. So we're going to break them all down. I'm going to give you guys a couple of different examples for some of the things that you do, right? So substitute, right? What you want to do is you want to replace the traditional facts with surprising statistics. So for example, let's just say instead of me saying, you know, 80% of realtors get this wrong, I might say only 20% of realtors get this right. So it might change the way that it's being received by somebody because now they're looking at it to figure out whether or not they're in the scarcity pile, right? Only 20% get this right. Did I get it right? Right. So rearranging those things, right? Replacing the facts with statistics or whatever the case may be, however you want to do it, is going to help you to repurpose it, right? So the other thing that you can do is you can use a rhetorical question instead of a statement. So instead of saying only 20% of realtors get this right, you can reframe it by saying, why is it that only 20% of realtors know this? Right? This way, it's now a rhetorical question that someone's sitting around for, and they're trying to figure out what the actual answer is, or if your answer matches theirs. Right? Next, we're going to combine. Combine is when you're either going to add humor, you're going to add in a relatable story, especially if it's something that is from current news and current trending events, right? So there's a couple of posts that I did. You'll see the one that I repurposed, and I combined the Timu commercial, right? I just used that in combination to help me retell that same story. Um, Merge visuals with text overlays for more impact. Basically, what this means is just adding more pattern interrupts that is going to help to keep the attention for longer. So adding new visuals, adding things that are just a little bit different to help you tell that story might help for you to be able to repurpose that same content and grow more, right? Next is adapt. So I'm going to modify a common tip into a unique life hack, right? So instead of saying, here's 3 ways to do this, say, this thing changed my life, right? Doing this changed my life. And then list the 3 things that you're going to speak about, right? So instead of being like, here's 3 ways to be more productive, wake up earlier, eat better, journal, just say, these 3 things changed my life, right? It's just restructuring the sentence so that it's being received a little bit different. Majority of these things that you're going to be repurposing and restructuring are going to rely in the hook, and then a lot of them are also going to be visual and audio elements that you're doing differently. And then next in adapt, we're going to adjust the storytelling style to match the audience's emotions. Once you've developed and started to understand who your target audience is more, you'll know the better and more unique ways that you can speak to them because you'll know specifically what it is that they're going through and you'll know what element of the storytelling is going to help to resonate the best, right? Um, One of the other things too is you can switch the story and start with the end in mind, right? But that's going to take us over to modify. So you can change the narrative to present the problem differently, right? So we kind of did that in the beginning where we were like, oh, only 80% know this. How come only 20% know this, right? That's kind of just changing the narrative from being, well, this is what you're getting wrong to only so many people know how to get this right. That's just a little bit different. So that's the modification. Most of these things are meant to be used in tandem, right? So you're going to utilize them in conjunction with each other to try to boost your content the best. Another example of modify is instead of saying, "Here's how to do this," you can just start by saying, right? Because if you say, "Here's how you do this," you're obviously giving someone a method in which that they can reach a certain result. So what you really want to do is start with the result in mind, right? So instead of me saying, here's how to gain more followers, I could say, if you want more followers, do this, right? Or here's how to gain more followers. I can say, if you're tired of people viewing your content but not following, do this, right? So just reframing, restructuring is going to help with that modification of the way in which your content gets delivered. And then, of course, you can alter the visuals so that they better align with your message. The other thing that you can do is you can add visuals that don't necessarily go with the message, right? So for me, I was using a Rubik's Cube that had nothing to do with the message, right? But it was something that pacified the audience to keep them entertained and be like, oh, is he actually going to solve this? But it was also just another visual that I added when I was telling that same story and giving all of the same exact insight. The other thing that I did was I changed how long I spent giving out the insight as far as, here's how you make the flyer in Canva, right? I didn't necessarily need to add that for two reasons. Number one, more people now know about Canva and have used it, and so they're comfortable with it. So that allowed me to eliminate that. But number two, that wasn't the shocker factor of being like, oh, I didn't know that. Most people know Canva. They might not know that you can make a flyer in there, but that's not shockingly new. What they didn't know was how easy it was for you to mail things. So I got to that a lot sooner, and I just eliminated I still added the visual of me. Hey, go to Canva, make a flyer, boom. But I left it just very short, and then I just went directly into here's what you're going to do on USPS because that's the real aha moment for people. Um, to another use. Now, this is right. You can utilize humor in an educational context, or you can repurpose your testimonials. If you've been doing something and you've actually gotten testimonials for something, instead of saying, "Hey, here's how you do this," you can say, "This person was suffering from this." And they changed, right? This is really good for weight loss. Instead of saying, hey, here's how you get six pack abs, you can say, hey, this was my client. She didn't have abs, back in October. Now we're in February and look, she's got a four pack, right? You can repurpose the testimonials and it can be the same workout. It can be the same concept of everything, but now you're just repurposing your testimonials to showcase that actual value, right? Um, Next up, you're going to want to eliminate, right? We can remove things that are unnecessary. Again, that's what I did with the other clip. I removed the entire bit about using Canva, just shortened it. We spoke about removing captions, right, to try to keep people's attention because we want to make sure that people are hearing us, right, so that it delivers properly with emphasis. And you also get to download my personality and whatnot, right? So remove some of the unnecessary details. Also, you might want to remove some visual elements from it. And then whenever you can, try to cut down the length, especially of the hook, but just try to cut down the length of the content period, just so that it's easier for someone to digest and consume. And then repurposing also allows you to take the longer version and purpose it onto another platform, right? So for me, I could have said, hey, if you want the full tutorial, comment this word. And, here's the longer version of this on YouTube, right? So now that repurposing gets someone to spend more time with you consuming your content. And now you've also been able to create something for another platform and they can then follow you over there. And then last is just rearrange, right? So shift the order of the storytelling. Sometimes you might want to start with the end in mind, right? Like for me, I said, um, this hack helped me, 3x my income. And then I told them how the hack, how it happened or whatever, how to actually do it. So shifting the order, right, is going to be rearranging the story, and then just reorganizing your visual elements to guide the viewer's focus, right? So reorganizing the things that people are looking at, so that way it helps for them to have a new focus on what it is that they're seeing, even if the content is the same thing. A lot of people will re-watch it and still find value in it because you've just changed the visual elements. Here's the other key thing about repurposing your content. When you put out something that's very good, oftentimes people just save it. And they say, because it gave them that endorphin, right? Of being like, oh, this can help me with my business. But they don't always execute on it. So showing up again a few weeks later, a month later, whatever, to say, hey, here's a hack is really a reminder for them to be like, oh, I forgot I got that thing in my save folder that I never went back to go utilize. And this person is now being more of a resource. You know what? I obviously cannot rely on myself. I should probably sign up for whatever it is that they are offering. So that's really part of the power of repurposing your content. And this is the exact structure that I utilize in order for me to do that. And you guys have seen that that has had some immense success for me. So I'm just inviting for you guys to do the same.